Thanks so much. It's a great honor for me to be here. And when Marie contacted me, I was right away very excited about the things she described, what you have in mind with the summer school and the way I see philosophy and I do philosophy is that it has to go beyond books, it has to go beyond universities, it really has to have transformative impact. And that's why I thought, yes, this is great and I want to be part of this. Just maybe a few words of my background. I started out in social work and went to Canada, lived in Canada for about 15 years. And worked mostly with indigenous communities and with the impact the cultural genocide had on the indigenous population in Canada, which impacted me deeply, and it does until today. So I transformed, I guess, from being a social worker trying to help. I guess that's the problem with a lot of social workers, and maybe also a positive thing, but I now consider it sometimes also as problematic as well, also what I've seen in Canada, I guess. To somebody who is trying to bring in a stream of philosophy that is not considered philosophy, and that's indigenous thought in the European canon of philosophy, and to look at, the plurality, or to use one of the terms, of cultures that are, epistemically just being left out of the discourse in philosophy. And I find that is not just ethically problematic, it's a tragedy for European philosophy. And that's one of the research initiatives and ideas and passions that I have at the Munich School of Philosophy. It's right, it's a very tiny university in the heart of Munich, right across all the big universities. Most of my colleagues are Jesuits, but not all of them. Now my boss, the president of the school, is not a Jesuit. There are major Jesuit universities around the world. What I like about the way Jesuits do philosophy is that they seek to go to the margins. They have a very strong feeling of a social responsibility with what they do, and the kind of philosophy they do is not considered to stay in very specialized elite ivory tower systems, but to really go out and not just to places where it's comfortable, but also to the margins, to places that are troubled. That's maybe all for now. I am not an expert on Hannah Arendt, not at all. I am intrigued by her quite a bit because I try to also involve women philosophers in the mainstream, even at our university. When I was asked, I think 2 years ago, to teach one of our main lectures on the history of philosophy, I decided for Hannah Arendt because my colleague was doing Martin Heidegger, and I asked my students in the big lecture hall if they had ever had a woman being mentioned in one of the main lectures in philosophy, and there was none. And when I was preparing that lecture, I looked in the textbooks that I had when I studied philosophy. In the history of philosophy, there was not a single woman, not even Hannah Arendt. That is changing, but we have to be part of that transformation, and that's what I try to do. So I make a point and try every semester now to, if I get one of the main lectures, that's still not always the case, I try to make a point to search for female philosophers, and there are many, to involve them and also to then also offer seminars. But like I said, I'm not an expert on Hannah Arendt, but I thought about her and did the research that I could preparing for this lecture. I find her extremely relevant when it comes to transformative work, and that's why I called my section, it's really not a lecture, I don't want to lecture anything. I want you to work with the text that was sent out before, and that we work together, but I will talk about that in a minute. But I find the thinking part so important, as we heard this morning, to resist mainstream simple solutions, and especially totalitarian thinking. Well, I guess I shouldn't call it thinking, because totalitarians tend not to think. So the power of transformative thinking, I think, is what I want to draw out together with you. I have a little it's a postcard about one of the programs that we developed. Krisha was also very instrumental in that. It's called Ethics of Intercultural Dialogue, and that's very much what we do here too. When we did yesterday our little code of conduct, that was a normative question. How do we want to work together? And it's all about dialogue, but not to take it for granted, to critically reflect on it from a philosophical point of view. And this program is online and in English. And if maybe you are interested, and if you're interested in what we do in Munich, you find information about that in this little thing, and I just pass it on. And if not, it's a nice, how do you call it, book, Lesezeichen? Book?
Bookmark, yeah.
Thanks. The thing that you put in your book that you know where you stopped reading. Yeah. Okay. Now I have to click my laptop and this at the same time. If I miss it, let me know. So just, I have two 1.5 hour slots in this summer school. The first one is now, and the second one will be tomorrow. And I thought of the goals that I have with regards to my slots, and I came up with 2. The first one is to draw from Hannah Arendt for the main intention of the summer school, as far as I understood it, to better understand what the human capacity for action entails, how transformation takes place, and how transformative research can help to enhance agency. The second one is based on me coming from philosophy and leaning on Arendt, that I mentioned before, I call transformative thinking, which goes beyond a mere academic or academic culture and traditional academic understanding of thinking. It seeks to explore the potential of thinking for social and cultural transformations, and that is, I think, also one of the goals that you have here. I find it very suitable that you picked Hannah Arendt, because it's actually an anniversary this year. Hannah Arendt died exactly 50 years ago, and we used that in Munich because our university turns 100 this year, and we mentioned Hannah Arendt quite a bit because a number of Jesuits were also part of the resistance in Germany. For example, Alfred Delp, who studied at our school, and others. And so we try to look at these figures to ask what their potential could be for the developments we see these days that are rather frightening around the world. The method I would like to use, I mentioned it, I don't want to lecture. Rather, I would like to work with you with the original text. I have the German version, I have an English version, just a copy. And particularly the book, The Human Condition, in English. It's so interesting that Hannah Arendt wrote in English and in German, and she never really translated it just word for word or sentence for sentence. Some sections of her books are actually quite different in the different languages. Anyway, I sent you the text, or I think you got the text, and I'm sure some of you have read it before you came here, and even many years before you came here. And I would like to focus on chapter 1 and 5. And chapter 1 today and chapter 5 tomorrow. Instead of lecturing, I would like to do, I think, what Hannah Arendt is consistently saying, particularly in The Human Condition, and that's something we heard already also, to tap into our, I called it plural in-between space, gaining knowledge from there. And Krisha will, danke. Thank you. Yeah, you have to, because I click here and then I don't know that. Krisha will do a section on transformative listening on Wednesday. That's something he works on in his postdoc project, and I've been working on listening practices for quite a while now too, and so it will be nice to combine what we drew out from Hannah Arendt's work to the transformative capacity of listening. Now I have to click here again. So before I say much more, I would like to do what we also agreed on yesterday with our little code of conduct exercise to bring us all on the same level. Because I don't know how much you know about Hannah Arendt, and I would like to know. I think it might be helpful just to get an understanding of where we are coming from. And I have two aspects that I would like you to just have a quick conversation among yourselves where you're sitting, maybe 3 or 4 people. What do you know about Hannah Arendt? About her life, and maybe some key terms that we heard already this morning, but we talked about terms yesterday. You may have different connotations or ideas around these terms coming from Arendt. So what did you come with what kind of knowledge about Arendt or ideas around her life and the key terms that she coined really in many different discourses, not just in philosophy? What did you come with? And where are you right now with regards to your level of knowledge? Maybe just 10 minutes or so, short conversation, 3 to 4 people. That would be great. Okay, may I please ask you to finish your sentence and then slowly come back. Thank you for engaging in our conversation right away. That's nice. Who of you knew Arendt before you came here? Okay, great. Yeah, personally it's a bit difficult, but who has read something from her before you came here? Okay. The one that I distributed, okay. But without the summer school. Okay.
The name on the book.
Okay, good, at least something. Thanks. Okay, what did you talk about? Let's just collect a few knowledge bits that you bring in. Yeah.
My contribution was that she's a smoker.
Yes, she was a very strong smoker.
And she has a tiny wristband. That's a watch problem.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we were talking about she being a disciple of Heidegger.
Mm-hmm.
And also Victor contributed with the kind of showing us that they were together in the ancient Greek philosophy, or somehow it was their inquiry was connected to that philosophy. So yes, and she migrated to the States.
I think disciple is a too strong word, and migration is a too weak word. But you're right. Yes, you're right. She was a student and then turned against him in many ways later on. And she had to flee from Nazi Deutschland, Nazi Germany. And just about didn't make it. Yeah. Thanks. Super. These were very important points. Good starting point. Who else wants to build on to that? Yeah.
Also to add to that, that she also had like this intellectual surroundings, which are very, how do you say it, not only famous but intense and personal.
Yes.
Like with Heidegger, for example, Heidegger, we found out that died half a year after she died, that she had this relationship with him, which was, as you said, at first friendly, then opposite, then again friendly. Then Heidegger somehow wrote poetry thanks to her, like all this drama. And also Jaspers was involved with her in her circle.
Also a dissertation, a supervisor.
Yeah, supervisor. So she was in this really famous intellectual circle, which obviously influenced her thinking and her works. So this is also very interesting aspect.
Yes, very nice. And it's so nice, I think in her life you can see many of the things that she was writing about, that she was actually doing them. So she started out with Rahel Varnhagen, a Jewish woman that she wrote about, and Rahel Varnhagen was holding, she called it salons, where she invited intellectuals and had discussion groups, and that's what Hannah Arendt did in her whole life, having these conversations in an open circle. So she always invited more new people, and yeah, in her private home as well. What else? Yeah.
I can say that maybe other participants. Say a bit louder. I thought I was louder. I would say that we have like two significant books in our conversation. Is the letters between Martin Heidegger and Hannah Arendt, and the book Eichmann in Jerusalem. I think it's two like most named in our discussion, and it's really interesting because it's like the most discussing topics in her biography, because she was criticized for both of these things, for Eichmann in Jerusalem and for the romantic relationship with Heidegger.
Very nice, yeah. So I try to just maybe try and rephrase it, and you correct me, but maybe it's easier to hear. So two books are standing out or were mentioned several times, Eichmann in Jerusalem and what was the other? That actually there are so many books on Heidegger and Arendt, but you're referring... the letters, yeah. Yeah, the letters. And both books were criticized, yeah, in many different regards. Maybe we come to that later. Yeah. What else? Something else you... Yeah.
So I'm just thinking about transformative thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me that it's like an old dream for all philosopher. And we're talking about philosophy like from the period of Plato. It's about transformative thinking. And this concept is like basic and important just for possibility of philosophy, if we're talking especially beyond academic culture. If it's not just a research, but like something implemented to life.
Yeah. And with regards to Arendt, it's quite interesting that she never wanted to be called a philosopher. She always wanted to be called a political thinker. Yeah. So that's exactly along these lines. She was always very critical about philosophy being bookshelved. Yeah.
Some other aspect we touched upon in our conversation was the plurality of Arendt's biography itself. The path she also made coming from the east to the west, from Germany to the US, and also from within Germany, being born in Königsberg in East Russia.
Yes.
Very kind of also in a sense a Central European or even Eastern European origin. Then making it to Central Germany and Weimar Republic, thinking with Alpha, with Heidegger, Jaspers, and so on, but then also becoming an American political theorist, teaching at the New School from the 40s onwards, 50s, 60s, 70s, and becoming a touchstone reference for many American debates that might actually be alien and foreign of view to us in Central Europe. So kind of, biography and transition, thinking.
Yeah, excellent, thanks. I think that's also a very important point, and maybe Also, thanks for mentioning bits of the biography. I think there's a very new biography out in Germany right now by Thomas Mayer, who did a lot of work on Arendt, and he tried to find something that has not been published in biographies yet, and focused on the time when she was exiled in France. And she left then France to the United States, and she was very much involved in several Jewish groups, also really doing very much work with her hands, actually a lot on farms. They were working on farms because that was necessary during the war. And it's interesting that she has this very plural life. Also, she considers speaking several languages as something that's very important. That's why she writes different in each language, not just translating. So very true. And her time in France impacted her quite a bit also. Okay, great. Yeah, sorry.
In Ukraine now we have some projects which start translate Hannah in Ukrainian language.
Mm-hmm.
It will come in Osnova Publishing and Com Publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And also we speak that we have this project in Ukraine, in the world, which called Subjective, and it's a project situated on power of judgment. And main idea of this project is when it's a platform in internet,
Mm-hmm.
like social media platform for meeting the object of art.
Mm-hmm.
And when you meet object of art, you make your judgment, and it's create in you possibility to judgment and create some subjective agency.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We will have the founder of this project with us to make a presentation of subjective on Thursday.
Good. So we will hear more about that. Yeah. It's nice to hear that Hannah Arendt's work is very plural in what people make out of it and how they connect her ideas and put them into practice. Yeah. Let's just briefly touch on a few key terms. I also want to talk about a few books, but what are some of the key terms that we heard a few this morning, but maybe just very briefly, let's collect a few of these terms that are mostly associated with Arendt. Yeah. Action. Yeah, good. That's one that we will dive into quite a bit tomorrow. Pardon? Judgment? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Responsibility. Mm-hmm. But what are some of the key terms that people right away connect with Arendt? Yeah.
Totalitarianism.
Exactly. Totalitarianism. What else?
Banality
of evil. These are the kind of trigger terms. Yeah.
Personality.
Yeah, it's a very general term that could be brought together with many people, but of course it's important for her too. Yeah.
Yeah, like labor versus work.
Yeah.
Versus
Good.
Action.
Yeah, versus action. Yeah. The one that Marie mentioned this morning.
The public sphere as well.
Public sphere, important one. We hadn't had that. Yeah. Natality. Yeah. And plurality. Fischer?
Maybe also power versus force.
Yes. It's also very important. That was also in the reading.
Violence, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah. So these are, I think, the terms that I put on here. Vita Activa. We will talk about that in a minute too, because it's interesting in the German version of the book that you got under the title The Human Condition in German is called Vita Activa. Yeah?
The same in Russian.
Okay. Good. And just to go back, because I always find it interesting when you look at a scholar's major works, you can see a thinking path that took place. And I already mentioned one of her first books. She was writing about Augustine, and then this dissertation on Rahel Varnhagen. She got famous overnight, quite rapidly, and very fast, and sort of, how do they say that today? It went viral or so, with The Origins of Totalitarianism, where she studied Nazi and Stalinist regimes, and she analyzed, and these are the major chapters in the book, how anti-Semitism, imperialism, and ideological thinking laid the groundwork for totalitarian systems. She particularly described, also I would say quite phenomenologically, the concept of total domination, and explored how such regimes destroyed individual freedom, pluralism, and reality itself. That was a very key book. 1951. Then she was writing like crazy. She was really writing many books, but it was so interesting with her because she started writing and then ended up at a very different venue where she started out at first, and then she writes about that, and sometimes she started a book and then didn't finish it, or coming up with a completely different title. She wrote also many essays and papers in several journals, very often also in the Jewish scholarly communities. The next one is the one that we will be talking about quite a bit, The Human Condition, 1958. And it was introduced this morning already. It explores what it means to be human through the three central activities that she drew out: labor, work, and action, and emphasizes on plurality, speech, and political action in public life. The next one was also mentioned already, and it's, I think, also one of her famous books because it was so much criticized, Eichmann in Jerusalem. That's the controversial report on the trial of the Nazi officer Adolf Eichmann. And that's where the term banality of evil comes from, and where she changed her whole understanding of evil. And the last one that I want to mention is on revolution, because I find it also relevant for us when we talk about transformation, because transformation is a dynamic term on a continuum, and one end of the continuum could be something like revolution. Here she compares the American with the French revolutions, praising the former for preserving freedom through institutions. That's one thing she criticizes about the French Revolution, because it was not lasting. She argues that true revolution must found on lasting political freedom, not just social change. And I think that's important when we talk about transformation, because transformation is not just a positive term. It has to be criticized for its hidden normative ideas. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I think it's good to have sort of a basis to start out from. And what I would like to do now is to look at the first chapter of The Human Condition. And I hope you had the chance to read it. It's rather short compared to the big one that we will look at tomorrow. It's the introduction of the book, where she introduces, I think, her main idea. So it's a very nice overview of the whole book. And I came up with a few questions that I would like you to talk about. I always like to use with questions to break up a text, a reading. And I would like you to also, again, meet with smaller groups to discuss these questions about chapter 1. And I use these questions to point you towards main ideas that I find particularly relevant to understand Arendt's work, and particularly this book, but also with regards to our summer school here. Some key ideas that we want to have and keep for the remaining days. The first question goes back also what we were hearing already this morning, but I find it always important not just to hear an idea, but to also kind of send it through your own system and try and find your own words to describe what Arendt is saying with this term human condition. What distinguishes us from animals? What does she say in her text? What makes us human? And how do the three terms that she came up with, how do they relate to that? How does Arendt distinguish these three terms that we heard several times today? And what do you think about that? Is she right? Is she missing something? Or sometimes, things change with regards to research. Thinking is transformed, maybe. It has been a while since she wrote this. Maybe we have a different understanding now of the human being. Now we have artificial intelligence. There's lots of discussion around human beings being animals, and maybe you have an idea. And another question that she touches on, only briefly, but I think in a very precise way, what are central categories of the political? What's her understanding of the political? Because politics and political theory means many different things, but Arendt has a very specific understanding of the political, and I think that understanding is also very crucial for what you intend to do with the summer school. And last point, what is her intention introducing the term Vita Activa? Why not Vita Contemplativa? And she's also touching on that in the introduction. 4 questions. Let's get started. And you don't have to work through the questions. You can pick one. And if you just talk about one, that's perfectly fine. But it would be nice if you choose one person of your group who briefly presents some of the aspects you talked about. Okay? I will bring you back in how much time? Maybe, half an hour. I think you need that time. Half an hour. Really dive into chapter 1. Please use the text, refer to passages in the text, use Arendt's words and your own, so that we are close to her thinking. Okay. You can do it in the same groups or self-organize. Yeah. Okay, let's now collect. Who of you wants to start? Thank you. Do you want to come up or sit here maybe and take the mic, because then it's easier to understand. And just in terms of time, I would like to ask you to try and be brief.
Okay. Thank you so much. We are working with our group on the 4th question. And what I want to say here is that we understood that that's probably the hardest question, because it's about intention, and we think that you need to really get the book, understand it, and also you need to know who Arendt was. But we tried to get it. Everybody has different understanding of and level of text understandings. But first we just said, well, probably to motivate action. That was her intention. Then we started to dwell into the text and found a couple of quotes, which I will read, a little bits of it and a big one. So, action interrupts the automatic flow of life. That's one thing. Then, why you need action? For men, not to focus on that, but only beginning. And then I will read the quote. We kind of, to understand the intention, is to go from the negative. So, surely she saw the what if. What if no action? What if only on that, no beginnings? And what if automation of life happens in totality of it? And on the page 246, she writes that what if without action and speech, without the articulation of natality, we would be doomed to swing forever in the ever-recurring cycle of becoming. Then, without the faculty to undo what we have done and to control at least partially the processes we have done, the processes let loose, if we can't control them, we would be the victims of an automatic necessity bearing all the marks of the inexorable laws which, according to the natural sciences before our time, were supposed to constitute the outstanding characteristics of natural processes. So basically, I think she promotes that action, but she sees the action almost as a way of getting out of that natural focus on dying.
Very nice.
So and as I can speak for myself here, that is very rooted in the context and what she witnessed. So it's kind of out of negativity she writes that.
Nice.
Yes.
Very nice. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Great. Who else wants to add something? That's great that you refer to the text. That's exactly what I hoped for. What else? Yes.
Okay, we tried to answer most of the questions. Besides, I think, the second one, and I guess not so deep on the fourth one as you did. We didn't do this thorough research with the quotes, but we went through it conceptually. And for the first one, we tried to distinguish key things that distinguish us from animals. And yes, these are a couple of things. First, I would like to distinguish is the urge to reach immortality as opposed to simple death in the biological cycle. So this is one characteristic that distinguishes us from animals. Because animals are always present in this not changing cycle in a way. But this is only Vita Activa related, because Vita Contemplativa would be about eternity, and this is important to grasp here, the difference between eternity and immortality. We discussed briefly, because eternity is about this contemplative experience, but immortality is about what we can do through work. So we can create something that will outlast our life. For example, some mason working on a church. So through work, he immortalizes himself. Also, what distinguishes us is speech and action in general. So we do not need only material things to be political and interact with each other and the world. So this also is a distinguishing thing from animals. So yeah, natality obviously, and she also talked about worldliness. So when we come into this world, we kind of are not full in the sense that as if we don't have a complete place here. And in contrast, animals are already fully integrated into the cycle of life in a way, and do not almost need anything additional. So this is different. Also, I guess to not take too much time, I'll just jump to and add a little from what we discussed in point 4, is that she kind of contrasted Vita Activa and Contemplativa. So her intention, in our opinion, is to kind of restore it. And there was a discussion that she actually wrote after that 3 more volumes on Vita Contemplativa. So Activa is the lower or smaller part of her works, but she still in this work kind of emphasize on the dangers of pure contemplativa, because she cited Plato, who thought that ideas are more perfect than any action, because they're like shadows of ideas, and therefore the perfect state is when in society a philosopher who is contemplativa, like thinking, has the whole society in a kind of work-like state, if that's understood. So like every person in society is like a instrument in the hands of the contemplative philosopher, and she like thinks that the key error here is to not mistake it and not make politics a work, but something actionable.
Very nice, thank you. So nice to puzzle these things together and to see what you talked about. It was very, very well done. Who else? There were more groups. We don't have to go through all groups, but it would be nice to have a few more. We still have a bit more time.
So I want to represent the question number 3.
Perfect.
So I would love to represent the third question. What are the central categories of the political from the perspective of Hannah Arendt? And what I would love to say is, first she like kind of divides it, like her, if you can say, what she was saying in general can be kind of all connected together. And the politics as well, and it's, as it was mentioned that we are, like she definitely said that the animals were smart, but they were not that intellectual. I mean, and the intelligence that we have that gives us the capacity to create something new, which is modality, and modality is really important for the politics. Because I would love to highlight the main definitions that she uses for the political sphere is the plurality, which is what she mentions that we are not the same, and it's really good, because if we would be the same, it would be probably like a rather simple world, and even more like rival, you could see people more as rivals, but when we are different, we're not the same. Like freedom is not about being the same, but it's about being different, and to bring these ideas to create something more fruitful and interesting. And therefore we have the plurality as a foundation, that we are unique, and she mentions that the politics just exists because of this diversity, otherwise we wouldn't need the politics, and she said that we would have like the world full of tyranny and authoritarian regime and so on. And freedom for her is not like the freedom from it's freedom to act, that we are free to create something new, which is also the reference to mentality. We are free to make different types of actions that would be interesting for productive for a single person, and alongside with this society, because we live in a coexistent world, and we have to consider it, and we have to be really, we have to use our opportunity to create something great and to be respectful and free, because we were given this, we can say, talent, kind of, and we should use it smartly, because otherwise we can create something evil, but evil is not something, as we know, it's not something good, and we have one, like Hitler, for example, we could see him as a big, powerful role model, and to be inspired, but we just inspired by some banal thing, so we should consider more what we consider really smart, really deep, and not just out of control or power. And she also mentions the public realm, And it's like a space, a square, where individuals appear before each other, and it's not like private selves, but like a part of the big political system, we can say. And we can create our reality, we can shape the history, and we should be in control of our individual capacity and not to be in control of like other people. So it's like this. Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you. Super. Now we got question 3 also. The new beginning in the political sphere. Who would like to add something new? Yeah, go ahead, please. Come. Yeah. I think. Yeah. One more and then we
already treated question 2.
Not necessarily, but not in the way you will do it. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought that this might be a nice
yeah.
moment to zoom in on some of the arguments or some of what we could think about. Some of the things we could think about what Hannah Arendt thinks, because that's something we discussed a lot in our group, which I think can be mostly related to question 2. What do you think of her analysis? We learned about the 3 categories of the political or the human condition: labor, work, action. We learned that action is related to politics, to the public, and to the sense of beginning something new. And that work is related to our temptation, perhaps, to our attempt to immortalize ourselves. And that life, for Arendt, is specifically related to labor. And there we started a process of reflection about whether that doesn't perhaps lead to a sort of anthropomorphistic argument or an anthropocentric argument, in the sense that labor for her and life is something in which natality is not yet present, is not yet full action, in which is merely repetitive. You always labor on the same field, you always clean the kitchen, again, you make breakfast, you make coffee, you have to put it into the trash bin next day, the next thing. It's kind of always merely repetitive. Nothing new happens when we are merely working on the sphere, within the sphere of labor, which leads obviously later in her book to the main argument that if we reduce a society to a society of mere laborers that in fact don't even have a job to do anymore, that's pretty terrible, because we eliminated the sphere of the political and of the natality from our lives. So we kind of eliminated what makes us human from the human society. And there we thought, well, is this not perhaps a very narrow understanding of life, of what life is? She says at some point later in the book that the 3 philosophers that very much define modern society in terms of labor are Marx, coming from Adam Smith, Nietzsche, and Bergson. And she kind of presents her argument in favor of the political and in favor of the public and in favor of action as a counter tendency to these three thinkers. And there we might think, well, couldn't we also say something in favor of vitalism, in favor of Marx and Bergson, in the sense that also ants and trees and nature have the sense of beginning something new, and that we in fact cannot think transformation without also thinking about the bios, about the trees, about the roots, about the little animals.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. I always find it important to also be critical about the philosophers we lot of use as highlighting ideas that we really favor, but to also look at them from a critical perspective. So thanks. Yeah. Cool. I think we are done, and I pass it over to somebody who can tell us what's next. I'm looking forward to doing more of this tomorrow, and thanks for being so eager to participate. That was really, really great.